All right. Welcome to November 14th Board of Ed meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We'll start off with the Student Council report. Sebastian Wiese.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sebastian Wiese. I'm the student body president at Somers High School, and I'm here to give a report on the goings at the high school. On November 30th, NHS is hosting a blood drive at the high school. Also, with our International Baccalaureate program, 2 of our diploma candidates are running for their community service project along with the diploma program. They're running a pet supply drive at all 4 schools, and there are bins at the lobbies at all 4 schools, and they're collecting pet supplies for their project. Last time I had spoke with you guys, the next day I had mentioned we had Disney in concert. That was such a successful event. It was a lot of fun. It was great to see all the little kids dressed up and all of our amazing high school singers. In 2 weeks, we have our fall musical, which is the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. It's a hilarious show. I just came from rehearsals. It's going to be a great show, so I hope all of you guys can make it. For athletics, winter sports began this week. Girls soccer made it to the state semifinals, but sadly lost 3-1 to Spencerport. It was a tough game, and they fought really hard. Boys football won the Section 1 title for the 3rd year in a row. They move on to the next round of regional play against Averill Park this Friday at 7 p.m. at Mahopac High School. And our 7 D1 commits will sign their national letter of intent tomorrow at SHS at 10:30 a.m. And we just want to give congrats to Max Sullivan, Julia Wilkinson, Annie McGuire, Nick Newman, Molly Fink, Isabella Miljovic, and Chloe Moncelli on all their efforts. They're doing amazing. For Student Council, this weekend we are attending our annual NYSCLSA state conference in Syracuse. Somers is bringing 50 kids, which is the most out of any school attending this conference. There's over 450 students attending this conference, and Somers is bringing a great crew. We're ready to develop our leadership skills, meet some new people, and have a lot of fun. It's an amazing conference. December 7th at around 11 a.m., I think, we will be having our Veterans Lunch, where we host our veterans at the high school, and just an amazing event, get to meet veterans and mix and mingle. For counseling, fall semester DBT lessons are in full swing at both the middle school and high school. Also, in partnership with SEPTA, the counseling department held a DBT night for parents, so parents could see the skills being taught to students. Following the early college application rush and completion of the first academic quarter, our high school counselors have begun individual 9th grade meetings and will continue to do so through the middle of December. The counseling department is also finalizing plans for the December 7th college night workshops for students and parents. And lastly, as a reminder, this Thursday night is the annual Wellness Summit. It will be held here in the SMS library, and the focus this year is executive functioning skills and how parents can support students at home. The summit will begin with an activity and wellness fair from 6:30 to 7 p.m. This is a great opportunity to see a variety of local activities and services in which students can participate. Parents and students can collect information and speak with representatives from activities that include team sports, music, arts lessons, therapy, fencing, community service, martial arts, scouts, and more. Our guest speaker on executive functioning will begin promptly at 7 p.m. And that's all that's going on at the high school. Thank you.
Thanks, Sebastian.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now we move on to the PTA SEPTA report.
always have to adjust the mic. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here. The PTA is always so thankful to work alongside the community. We're so thankful. I love to say this because not many communities can say this, but we have 5 very active and thriving parent, teacher, and student associations over at the high school. And students are welcome to join at any level, so always take that into consideration. So all the units are working on their membership, and I want to give us, I want to congratulate all of them because they've won several membership awards from the New York State PTA. But I want to specifically give a shout out to the middle school. They are just 10 memberships away from the Savvy Award, so they're hoping to meet and exceed that goal during the upcoming middle school years program night info session that's happening tomorrow. And the Savvy Award is when they reach 100% of their membership goal. So they're so close, so please consider joining if you haven't joined already. And then their next meeting will be November 29th on 7 p.m. on Zoom. And I don't think I actually introduced myself. I just kind of dove right in, didn't I? My name's Yvette Harold, and I'm the PTA Council co-president. I have 2 children over at SIS. And again, I'm thankful to be here tonight. So I'll dive right back in. Primrose, as you know, Holiday Happiness, I believe it's been 51 years, was successful on November 4th. Thank you to all the vendors and families that came out to support Primrose. Primrose also hosted, continuing the tradition for 30 years, Red Grammar to kick off Red Ribbon Week. And we want to give a huge shout out to the new Wellness and Red Ribbon Week chair, Danielle Cheverdini. She did an amazing job of really elevating that week for the students at Primrose. We also want to thank the Primrose PTA co-presidents, Crystal Kraminski and Carolyn Chavone. They hosted an amazing Spirit Gear drive, something that the parents at Primrose were asking for. So that was extremely successful. They raised over $1,000 for the school. And this is something that's coinciding with the Inclusive Schools Week. Primrose is hosting the Katie Petroluzzo. I know I always butcher her name, but we've had her at Primrose for several years during the Author's Day, so she will be back. She writes books specifically about her daughter's experience with hearing loss. So that will also be kicking off Inclusive Schools Week. Over at SIS, another long-standing tradition of the birthday party, which was a huge success. We want to thank all the volunteers and all the parents. It was a beautiful but chilly night, and thank you for continuing to support that long-standing event. Also, be on the lookout for the Green Committee is going to be hosting a wreath contest. That was very successful last year, so they're going to do that again. And the PTA purchased apples from Stewart's Farm to kick off their Red Ribbon Week. Over at the high school, I'm very excited to see this. Everybody keep an eye out for the new and improved music room. The high school granted a $1,000 grant to Mr. Amato and Mr. Russo to update that room, the chorus and the rooms that are used for rehearsals and things like that. SEPTA, so many things happening over at SEPTA. The Coffee and Conversation is happening November 30th. Oh, and before, let me backtrack for the high school. Their meeting is coming up on Thursday, November 16th, 7 p.m. in the library. So please stop by and don't forget to join because they are so close to that goal. Sorry, that was high school. SEPTA, Coffee and Conversation, November 30th. They're also kicking off Inclusive Schools Week by gifting 30 copies of Sonia Sotomayer's book, Just Ask, to Primrose. So that'll be exciting. Lots of literacy. And then they're also having a wonderful, fun family event, bowling, on Wednesday, November 30th, which is that half day for us over at JV Lanes. So lots of wonderful things happening over at all the units and all the schools.
Great.
Thank you
very much. All right, now we move on to public comment for agenda items. Remember, this is for agenda items only. All speakers will properly identify themselves, a maximum of 30-minute period, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. No district employee or students may be commented upon or identified by name or situation. Questions asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff member for reply at a later date or time. Questions requiring investigations will be referred to the superintendent for consideration and later response. Anybody?
Is this public comment?
This is for agenda items only. So anything that's on the agenda. At the end of the regular meeting, there will be open public comment. All right. All right, let's move on to the central office report.
I'll go ahead and start that. I'm actually going to just change it up a little bit. We'll see if our team with Liz can come up, and Claire. We're going to go ahead and start on the 21st century knowledge and skills report here, and then I'll follow up with that just on the update on the plan for excellence. So in here, as the team comes forward, again, as we know, the overarching Forward and Excellence report has 6 different guiding pillars in there, overall arching goals, and then this is our 3rd installment for the year. So as we build this throughout the year, this is the first group, and Liz will start us off with the elementary piece and head off to Claire. So I'll turn it over to you. So thank you, Liz.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as Dr. Blanche mentioned, tonight we're going to share kind of a summary of various year-end student performance results from the 22-23 school year. By the spring of last year, there was some great work that was set in motion, setting us up for this school year. We gathered the K-12 Reading Review Committee to examine practices in assessment and literacy, both for instruction and for grouping purposes, and created a summary of strengths and needs, which was shared with our current literacy consultants, PLC Associates. And this information is helping to guide our literacy professional learning throughout this year. Our KE teachers also engaged in learning around the assessment and instructional tool IXL for both math and ELA, and began to analyze that student data to better inform small group planning and supplemental supports. And this work was also supported by our partnership with PLC Associates. And the work continues into this school year as we learn more about how this tool assists us with pinpointing and supporting students' needs. So this evening, we will begin by looking at results across Primrose through the middle school and concentrating on performance levels and tiers of support in reading and in math. And as we review this data, there was growth in both reading and math across the schools, but with that said, we still recognize areas in need of improvement, and these needs are at the forefront of our professional learning this year. So first here on the slides, we're pulling up Primrose Elementary School. And I just want to take a little bit of time to review the format that you see on these slides. Remembering that once again, we're focusing on reading and math, the supports in those areas, and student performance. So if you'll notice, the pyramid that is on the left side, on that second half of the screen, that is highlighting the percent of students either utilizing or in need of different types of support in reading or in math. We call these the tiers of support. Tier 1 support is general classroom instruction and practices that are made available to any student. And for most students, that Tier 1 is what they need to either meet or exceed the grade level benchmark. For some students, they may need more targeted, smaller group support in addition to that regular classroom instruction. So this percentage of students we consider receiving a Tier 2 level of support. At Tier 2, there may be a combination of both in-class and intervention group support, or it may be intervention support that happens outside the classroom setting. This small group work may focus on addressing gaps in students' foundational skills. It may also include instruction to help either preview or review content strategies and skills that are being taught in the general education setting or that whole group setting. We also have a smaller percent of students where supports need to be intensified further, either by frequency of sessions during the week or maybe it's smaller grouping size. And these students we consider to be receiving that Tier 3 level of support. These types of supports are typically delivered by either an AIS teacher or a special educator. These students may be receiving alternative types of literacy and math instruction with an emphasis on multisensory approaches and really working to address discrete skills. So these tiered supports are really meant to be fluid, where students receive what they need, their progress is monitored, and adjustments are made based on their performance and what their needs are showing. So tonight, we're reviewing students' performance on STAR reading and math, but remembering that there are also other ways that we monitor students' progress. We also use the DIBELS assessment in reading grades K through 8, and that's the assessment of foundational reading skills, as well as the IXL Math and ELA to help us gather data to monitor overall skill sets of students. So it's very helpful for us to have the multiple measures so that we really have a well-rounded picture and use that for the instructional planning purposes. I just want to take a minute and thank the board again, those members who were able to join us at SIS last month for our literacy walkabout. That was a great experience, and to thank those teachers and students for inviting us into their classrooms. And during that visit, we saw different tiers of literacy support. That was highlighted through that walk. And we're very excited to have many of those teachers join us here at a workshop this month, where they'll share more insight in regard to the tiers of literacy instruction that's supporting our students. So now back to the slide format here, thank you. You'll notice to the right, we shared the spring 2023 performance levels on STAR reading and math. And the assessment results fall in 3 categories. Those students meeting or exceeding the benchmark, those approaching the benchmark, and those performing below the benchmark. So we'll take a look at Primrose, grade 2, our exiting class, spring 2023. And there we had in reading, 83% of students meeting, exceeding the benchmark, with 11% approaching and 6% performing below. Now, there's a combination of supports that take place which impact those results that you see in the pie chart. As I mentioned earlier, of those 83% of students in the blue that are meeting or exceeding benchmark, some may only be in need of that Tier 1 regular classroom instruction. Some may require some additional Tier 2 smaller group instruction to meet that benchmark. And for some to meet that benchmark, they may need the support of the Tier 3 style intervention. And last spring, there were 73% of our second graders that were just involved in Tier 1 regular classroom instruction, 13% needing that Tier 2 small group support, and 14% requiring that Tier 3, a little more intensive support. So in Primrose last year, teachers in kindergarten piloted the phonemic awareness program Heggerty in all classrooms, and we saw a positive impact of incorporating that in literacy instruction. So that program is now being taught in grades K through 2 as an experience for all students. There's also consistency of all classes K through 3 in teaching the phonics program Foundations to support students' decoding skills. So you may be wondering, along with this, how do you know which interventions are moving which students? And that is data we track very closely at the building levels through the help of our data cycle teams in each building. So we know when an intervention is helping to move the child forward, or if it is not helping the child move forward, what we need to change about that support for the child. Similarly, for spring of 2023 in grade 2, for our exiting second graders there, in math, STAR Math, 89% of students met or exceeded that benchmark, with 4% approaching and 7% performing below. And once again, it's a combination of math supports that take place, different supports for different students to help them, to push them to or above that benchmark. 75% of our second graders were in the Tier 1 classroom instruction, while 15% required Tier 2 support, 10% needing that Tier 3 level of supports. So I'm going to shift us now to Somers Intermediate School. And we'll review their spring 2023 data, focusing on those exiting 5th graders from last spring. And similar to Primrose, a range of supports is used to help those students progress throughout the year. So last spring, 71 of our 5th graders finished the year meeting or exceeding the benchmark on STAR reading, with 16% approaching and 13% performing below the benchmark. We know that in the springtime, there was 66% of fifth graders working within that Tier 1 classroom level instruction, with 25% requiring the additional Tier 2 level support, 9% working within the Tier 3 level supports for instruction. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this information is very important and helps us to inform our next steps in literacy professional learning, as we want those results to continue to improve. So in all third grade classrooms now, they are all delivering foundations instruction to support the development of children's decoding skills. The teachers are also learning about the use of decodable text, and that's through the help of our consultants, so that they're able to use this style of book for students to practice their phonics skills in a controlled text-based way. And our 4th and 5th grade teams have also engaged in learning around morphology and the importance of that to decoding, especially with those multisyllabic long words and word parts. And as the year progresses, we will continue to learn from our consultants on delivering a language and knowledge building literacy curriculum. We know that is an important bucket in building children's reading skills, and one that really reinforces content vocab, the ability for children to build their background knowledge, and to also make cross-subject, cross-curricular connections. That all then, in turn, impacts their comprehension skills. Further multisensory supports have also been implemented across the district, not just in SIS, but really district-wide. We have the PAF phonics and fluency reading support that is implemented for students who need it in grades 1 through 7. We also have providers trained in Orton-Gillingham approaches for multisensory reading instruction, which is available for students who have those significant gaps in their foundational skills, and who require this in grades 3 through 9. And we are closely monitoring students' response to these types of interventions that we've just recently put in place, so that we can plan future accommodations, future programming, and instruction accordingly. So now we're also going to take a look at math, SIS. Last spring on STAR Math, 86% of 5th graders finishing the year meeting or exceeding the benchmark, with 5% approaching benchmark and 9% performing below the benchmark. 75% of those students were within the Tier 1 general classroom instruction, 20% needing additional Tier 2 small group intervention to progress, and 5% requiring that further specialized instruction, which, like I mentioned before, could be an increase in frequency or intensity of supports in order to progress. Same as Primrose, SIS also utilizes a data team to determine how students are responding to different tiers of supports. They use it for programming purposes and for planning for any supplements or interventions and making those adjustments throughout the school year. And finally, the slide to the right tonight highlights the New York State ELA and math test information for grades 3 through 5. Last spring, we saw a bit of a rise in the amount of students partaking in the New York State tests. 15% of students opted not to take the ELA tests in those grades, and 12% opted not to take the math for grades 3 through 5. There's really no hard data that we have that attributes to that rise. The only difference I can report in our testing sessions is that last spring we did pilot having 5th grade classes take the computer-based version of tests. This year, all students in grades 3 through 5 will take the computer-based test for ELA and math. Other than that, there's no further data to explain the increase in testing or those participating in testing. But even with that rise in the rates, it doesn't capture every student's performance, which is why it's so important for us to also include those internal assessments when we're planning programming and supplements and intervention for children. Typically, this time of year, we're able to show our 3-8 test results and how they compare to the rest of the region. But unfortunately, that information has not been made available to the region yet. But once it is, we'll certainly update this information for the community. And then please note also that there was no grade 4 science test given last spring. and that was a change in the state. The standards in science have undergone many changes, and the state is moving the timing and the formatting of the science test, and will now take place in 5th grade. We were able to pilot elements of the hands-on portion of the science test last year, but the actual test will be in 5th grade in spring of this school year. So thank you. And at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Claire Comerford, who can share some information regarding our secondary schools.
Thanks, Liz, and thanks for explaining these the pyramid and the pie chart. I appreciate that. So tonight I'll talk a little bit about learning at the secondary level, and we'll start at the middle school. For the past several years, Somers Middle School faculty and staff and administration have been working diligently to align practices with the International Baccalaureate framework for teaching and learning at the middle years level. And last year, Somers Middle School was officially accredited as a middle years program school by the International Baccalaureate program. And in this model, New York State curriculum and standards are taught through a framework that encourages reflection, inquiry, and the development of skills that can be used throughout a student's life by applying curriculum to situations students will encounter in the real world. But rather than hear that from me, we'll go ahead and hear it from some students.
Be presenting and like doing speaking assessments, and I've been more communicator. And what is, it's not so much as a curriculum. I feel like it's more of a type of learning.
We also use learner profile attributes.
When you come into the room, I feel like you always look up and you see the goal for today, like the day that you have, and I feel like that helps me like get on track. And like some days it'll be more open, where it's like you're working on a project and just researching, and that'll be on the board. And sometimes we're actually presenting and like doing speaking assessments. That'd be more communicator.
We learn about a specific subject, and then we don't necessarily take a test. We take an assessment, and we kind of like one time social studies we did like we did a Socratic seminar, and we would like all talk about it and add on to each other instead of like we would be testing our knowledge instead of actually taking like a test on paper. You stay open-minded with each other's ideas instead of like being by yourself and doing everything on your own.
Yeah, I think that when you're prompted questions on the spot, I feel like it makes it so like you can't just study like the specific questions. You kind of have to know like the entire topic, and then you just have to be prepared for any question they give you. But when I came into the middle school, I was very shy and I didn't really I felt so uncomfortable about presentations. But I feel like because we've done so much of that, and we've been introduced to that, like I don't really see it as like a test anymore. I see it more as just like something that I have to do, and I don't mind it at all.
Sorry. Nope. Nope. Okay. Okay, we're gonna deal with that up there. Okay, so just like at the elementary level, all students take benchmark assessments multiple times a year in math and reading in grades 6 through 8, so that we can determine the successes and the needs of our students. The enrichment and interventions are designed for all students at the 3 levels listed on the left, and the right represents student performance in math and ELA at the spring of last year. As Liz mentioned, we always strive for 80% of our students to be reaching benchmark on our internal assessments. And this data emphasizes the need for the literacy support that Liz outlined, and that continues up through grades, through the middle school as well. In addition to the many resources that Liz mentioned, including the consultants, the science of reading, explicit instruction for teachers, we've also implemented a What I Need period for all students in the middle school so that they can receive either academic intervention or enrichment during those periods throughout the day. We've also reallocated resources into academic intervention support, added a reading lab and increased its frequency, implemented a new program called IXL and trained teachers in it so that students and teachers can monitor their progress and more specific skill development, and allows teachers to pinpoint needs and also allows students to take ownership over their own learning. And in addition, we've added the dynamic indicator for basic literacy skills for the students in academic intervention services at Somers Middle School. So this is a perfect example of when the data shows us that there's a need, we respond programmatically and personally for students' needs to help improve that those results. So as the state tests that the increase in participation hasn't yet reached the middle school, we still have pretty high refusal rates here at the middle school. And 1 of 4 refuse to take the ELA test, and 1 out of 3 refuse to take the math test. So because of these rates, the state test can provide important information for specific students who take the assessment, but it's not necessarily reliable data for programmatic decisions or changes, and for that we rely on our internal assessments. As Liz mentioned, the internal bar on these bar graphs that you see is Somers High School is the region of school districts who are in the Putnam and Northern Westchester regional BOCES. And so you see the bar graph represents their performance compared to ours on the inner portion. This comparison information, as Liz mentioned, is not available right now, but when it is, we will provide it. So you'll see that's why all the graphs on the right in green for the 2023 school year do not have a black bar in the middle. You'll see that our students perform very much in line with the region, and as well, I want to point out that the math test for Math 8, those are students who have not been accelerated in math, and so those are all students who are in Math 8. All of the students who are accelerated have been pulled out from taking this exam, and they take the Regents exam at the end of 8th grade. So that data reflects that. 2023 data shows that they're performing pretty well. And then just a point, something to point out is that the New York State science standards and assessment changed last year. Last year was our first implementation of it. So kudos to the science team for preparing and implementing that transition and working with students, because they performed very well on that brand new assessment that last year was the first administration of. So for Somers High School is, I think we all know, it's in its 6th year of offering international baccalaureate courses in 11th and 12th grade. Students can either take those courses as they choose to, one or 2 or 3 or however many they want, or they can decide to embark in a full diploma program that is like a full college level experience for 2 years, at the end of which they can graduate with a completely additional diploma in addition to the New York State Regents diploma that is recognized by colleges and universities nationwide and also globally. In addition to the IB courses, we also offer AP courses and dual enrollment courses. So we have increased significantly our offerings and opportunities for all students to engage in college level work at the high school level, graduating with the experience, the skills, the knowledge that those courses offer, and the opportunity to earn college credits depending on the university to which they're applying. And so we'll hear from one of our diploma candidates now.
IB has prepared me so much for college. You're being prepared for the future, not just to take a test and pass the class. It's actually like application based. You're learning to learn about the perspective of the world, and you're doing this assignment. You're reading a poem in English class because it teaches you about a different part of the world or a person who comes from a different place. Or you're doing a math equation because you're learning about how to do like math, like something like if you need in the future to have a bank account or have take out a loan. It's learning about how that affects you and like filling into like perspective and preparedness. I think writing my college essay was so much easier because of all the writing I did for IB and because of all the writing that is implemented and all the policies that are in place at Somers, like evidence-based grading. I think it's a great thing that we're doing. Like the fact that we are taking away from that like super priority of having this numerical grade and placing an importance in the work you're doing and being like a citizen of the school, as opposed to can you take in information and spit it out on a piece of paper. But like it's more about what do you know, how do you engage in the classroom, and not just like here's a number from 1 to 100.
Okay, thank you. So 95% of Somers High School students graduate within 4 years. If we extend that to 6 years, 99% of our students graduate within a 6-year period of time. It takes some students longer to graduate, certainly students who require increased support, so we're very proud of those statistics. For the class of 23, 90% of students went on to college. So either 2-year or 4-year colleges, 90% of students. And then we have 10% who choose to take a gap year, enter the military, join the workforce. And those stats remain pretty consistent over the years. Next, we'll take a look at our New York State Regents results for Somers High School. As we'll see, the ELA Regents remains pretty steady and has for the past several years, even during the gray bar, which is the hybrid year, post-COVID year. We'll see some dips as we look at some other graphs in those years, so that's something to take note of. And then the United States and the global history graphs do not have a full 5-year representation. For both exams, there are different reasons for that. For the global regions, there was a new assessment that rolled out in 2019, so that's the beginning part of the data for that exam. There was no exam in 2020. It was optional in 2021, and no one took it. 22 and 23 are regular sources of data. So again, a commendation to the social studies team at the high school for managing to keep our student performance stable as they work through this transition of a new assessment with a completely different way of assessing students. And then for United States history and government, we have regular examinations in the year 2018 and 2019. There was no exam in 2020. It was optional in 2021. No one took it. And in 2022, it was canceled because there was a question that they didn't want anyone to see on the printed exam. No one's seen it since, as of yet. It's a big mystery. So there was no administration there. And then last year, the green bar was the first administration of the entirely new framework for the United States history exam. And we'd like to recognize the efforts of the social studies team who effectively navigated the transition so well that students achieved great success on that brand new exam. This page is showing us the results of our algebra regents and also our science regents in earth science and living environment. Again, those gray bars represent the hybrid post-COVID years. Proud to recognize that students are again coming back to where we were pre those years with the green and blue bars. Again, the regional benchmark is not available right now, but we will add that as soon as it is. The next.
Okay, a quick question. Yeah. Does the algebra score there, is that only students that take algebra in high school, or does that include the 8th graders that take it?
Thank you for asking. It's all students, including the middle school students who take the exam.
Okay.
The SAT and ACT, you'll notice a precipitous drop in the number of students taking SAT and SAT as more colleges and universities are no longer requiring those for admission. And we expect to kind of continue to see that trend. So last year, Somers High School was ranked #1 in the region for the most AP/IB courses of all schools in our regional Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES consortium for offering the most AP and IB courses with 35 last year. That comparison is not out yet. However, we have added 2 courses, and so now we are offering 37 AP and IB courses to Somers High School students.
How many are AP and how many are the IB?
If we think about what we just saw presented, I think it was, I don't want to make it up, but I can provide that information to you later.
Okay. And I think the board had received earlier in the year all hard copies of the high school catalog. And it would, if you went in there, and it would identify every one of the courses that Claire is identifying tonight, and you can get a little narrative in there, as well as the other courses you'll speak to about some of the college mode classes too. So
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify for people at home listening.
yeah, so certainly I would look at there. We can bring that up and stuff. So.
So for several years, the high school team has been working on the stretch goal of increasing access and participation in higher level courses for all students. We do this by increasing access to these courses and by providing students with the support they need through offerings like the Writing Center, the Academic Support Center, and more, so that students can achieve success in these courses. If we go back to, this data goes back to 2020, but if we go back to 2018, we see that students enrolling in higher level courses has increased by over 40% over that time period, and 71% of last year's graduating seniors engaged in one AP or IB higher level course before graduation. And then if we move to the next, we see that 71% of them engaged in one or more, two or more, 51% of last year's seniors engaged in 2 or more AP or IB courses, and 36% engaged in 3 or more AP or IB courses. Continuing on, it's one thing to increase access, but it's another thing to maintain solid performance data for students. And we're proud to report that for both AP and IB, with over 40% increased access over the years, we're still seeing solid performance levels from our students engaging in these courses. So for AP performance, the data is similar to IB courses. We've increased the access, and student performance has remained steady or grown. We graduated 46 AP scholars last year. These are students who received 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams, as well as other distinctions earned through the College Board listed at the top. 70% of all our students in AP courses earned a score of 3 or more. That is the score determined, passing by the College Board, and also the score at which colleges start to take credit. Like IB courses, students can earn college credit by enrolling in and meeting certain criteria set by universities. And that usually means getting a certain score that's set by the individual university. Students enrolled in these classes at the high school level perform better in college whether they receive the college credit or not. So it's wonderful that our students are performing well. However, for students who are not necessarily reaching that passing mark, there's a plethora of research that shows that by merely engaging in the learning experience, they have an advantage and they perform better in college by having had the experience in high school.
So Claire, as you grab that, I just want to grab the numbers off the high school website. So Pat, or Dom, there's 16 AAP courses, and there's 21 of those are the IB courses.
So we're offering more IB than AP, correct?
A few more, yes.
Right.
So for IB performance, we see, again, the enrollment courses has increased significantly from 133 total IB exams in 2019 to 177 in 2023. And as that enrollment increases, student performance remains consistent, with over 80% of students earning a passing rate on their IB exams, whether that's at the standard level or at the higher level. And just a note, 2020 and 2021 were not normal testing years. Those were the COVID years. And then continue to commend the teachers on the impressive growth, with these challenging assessments that we see. And again, these are courses in which students can earn college credit, depending on if they meet the criteria set by the university. One thing to note is when a student does engage in a full DP program, it is very rare, but sometimes they can skip a whole year of college because they've earned enough credit to move on to be a sophomore. So in addition to the AP and IB courses, Somers High School offers rich opportunities for students to explore their passions in other classes. Our robust science research program is the most enrolled in Somers High School history, with last year with 64 students exploring authentic research in the sciences over several years of their high school career. Annually, Somers High School students are recognized in regional, state, and national competitions for their work. And we'll hear from one of our science research students here.
I was interested in just cancer research in general, and then I found my mentor, and he was working on chemotherapy research, so I was able to hop on the project. Basically, we found a bunch of these reasons why the thymus might be damaged by chemotherapy, and this year we were kind of just delving further into those reasons and looking at the specific gene expression that might be causing that. I mean, it's been really cool being able to see all of that in the lab, and especially since it's the first real experience to know whether I want to go into this in college or in the future. The competitions that we enter are really, they're good experiences for just becoming better presenters, because you have to really nail your presentation down. You can't have a script or anything. Probably the main thing is how much it's improved my writing through writing the research papers both years. That's been awesome for just completely changing the way I write.
We also partner with several colleges and universities to offer dual enrollment courses for which students can earn college credits in areas of interest while in high school. Excuse me. All of the courses listed here in these bar graphs offer the opportunity for those credits for those students. Some of examples of universities with whom we partner are Syracuse University, the University of Rochester, SUNY Albany, Westchester Community College, and more. All in all, we've seen that when we increase access, encourage students to engage in challenging coursework, and provide personalized supports, students exceed our expectations and find great success. Thanks to Ray for his vision, and to the Board of Education and the community for supporting the programs. They offer a wide array of opportunities to meet the needs of all of our students.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you, Liz. A couple questions along the way or anything?
Yeah, I have a question. In the middle school, for reading, you mentioned, and maybe I just missed it though too, but you talked about the support services and intervention increases that you've been doing. Any changes planned or being looked at for curriculum or how we're teaching it?
Yeah, so as Liz mentioned, we're partnering with a consulting firm. We have a specific consultant who's already been in, meeting with teacher teams, visiting classrooms, reviewing curriculum, and examining practices. So part of that is looking at and supporting middle school teachers who aren't necessarily reading specialists, right, in explicitly teaching literacy instruction, which is something they may not have had to do. We're seeing an uptick in need for that. So that's a large part of it. And the other part of it is going to be leading teams through examining the curriculum to determine if it's meeting the needs of our students, of the literacy needs of our students. And so all of that will be done throughout over the course of the next at least 2 years, maybe more.
Okay. And they're looking at SIS and SMS.
Yeah, they are. And Primrose as well. It's a consulting team that's, sorry, I'm shorter, that's working across the 3 buildings. What they are doing is noticing where we have areas of strength in each building and areas where we need to come together as a team and really take a deep look at our practices, both for whole group instruction and small group instruction. As the kids get into the older grades, like I mentioned before, there is a shift to looking at longer words with more word parts and how we support students in decoding those words, because they come up more frequently in the style of text, and especially in content areas as things get departmentalized in the upper grades. There is also a strong look at how you best develop vocabulary in students in the upper grades, from 4th grade up through the middle school, as well as, like I mentioned before, what does it mean to have that rich knowledge building, language building curriculum, which is highly emphasized according to the science of reading. In our elementary grades, in the lower grades, they're noticing our strength strength in our explicit practices of teaching kids their phonemic awareness skills, their phonics skills, and building in the fluency. And now we're shifting the conversation to the other half that supports comprehension around how you build that background knowledge, build that language for students to make connections when they're reading and trying to comprehend text, and also how you make cross-content connections. I don't think there's an elementary school teacher out there that wouldn't say, please help me make more connections in the content children are learning throughout the day. Nobody wants to feel that a day in elementary school is compartmentalized. So the more we can do that through our literacy instruction is what we want to do. And then in turn, it builds that vocabulary and background knowledge, builds the comprehension for kids.
Great. And then they're helping, so they're iterating through this stuff with you right now. Like, so you're making micro changes, throughout the year and all that.
Yeah, the latest change we're at right now, we have firmed up that phonemic awareness and phonics for students. The piece right now that our early grades are working on is the use of decodable text, like I mentioned before. That was our next resource change that we did in grades K through 3 to make sure that those could be implemented in classrooms, and the consultants are helping us learn how those are best used, how you parse them out, and support your phonics work throughout a week of instruction in classrooms.
Great.
Yeah,
and I believe we saw, just real quick, on our site visit too, that you guys have moved up a foundations program up to 3rd grade, which was different from, from before, correct? Like that was something you saw from the data that needed it.
Yep, that's become a guaranteed experience for kids in K through 3.
K through 3.
So, question. So,
Sure.
The big thing in the last couple of years was overall school rankings for Somers as compared to the rest of Westchester County. And we've been putting a lot of money in, and these numbers look good and everything. Where are we missing the mark, and why? I think we dropped from 17 to 21 overall in Westchester County, while surrounding districts are, still beating us. Where are we missing the mark? Where are we falling short?
That's a good question, and I think a couple of factors began with the explicit instruction and portions of literacy for our young learners that unfortunately got caught in the pandemic when those items needed to be explicit to kids, and there's interruptions by doing it either through Zoom or it not being consistent. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 that we addressed was, like I mentioned before, that consistency of what we were doing for phonemic awareness and phonics skills and building that for kids. So that's why we have that guaranteed experience now. And we are seeing growth in those areas of students' reading skills, which is why, for instance, we pushed the Hegarty instruction further up through 2nd grade. And the other portion now is a good question, is that comprehension portion of kids' reading performance. There are big pieces that are tough for kids to make connections about. For instance, determining the theme of a text is always really tough for kids. So what the consultants are helping us do now is taking a look at the materials we have, the curriculum pacing and guides that we have, and our instructional practices, and saying what aligns well with the science of reading, what does not, where do we need to make shifts both in programming and instruction for kids so that it fills in those higher level thinking comprehension skills as well and builds their vocabulary. Sure, absolutely.
So I think Liz addressed the question for why you may see discrepancies between our regional counterparts and our data in some different bar graphs. I believe, Dom, you're talking about a different measure, however. Are you talking about a specific ranking or a specific?
There was the Westchester Magazine's overall rankings from last year that showed us drop from 17 to 21.
Yeah, so that and U.S. News and World Report, we are also really interested in finding out what their algorithms are, because the data that we show regionally and within New York State shows us performing at or outperforming our partners. So we've been trying, Ray and me and Liz, and we've been working trying to understand what the algorithms are exactly and why our rankings are not matching the data we know. And one thing I know is U.S. News World Report it doesn't have any updated data. It's still using Regents exams from 2018. So those rankings are really kind of nullified. And some of the most premier institutions in the country have negated them and discounted their findings. And so that's great for us, but that doesn't matter because people still pay attention to that. And so we're working to try to understand what the algorithms are so that we can make changes that we need to better kind of demonstrate what's actually going on here than what's being reported by external sources.
And I think philosophically, going back, and this board at the time had a conversation when we started the International Baccalaureate work, the expansion of that program, as well as, frankly, we've added AP courses along the way, having more students gain access to that program, going through that experience, was a conscious philosophical approach, more students accessing that. So we may have some students that maybe are not performing at a level where maybe the other students are. I'll give the example of the mathematics region. A number of years ago, when Claire was actually at the high school, we made a determination not to have students sit for extra tests. They tout the algebra, which is a mandatory 4-in-1, they're done. We don't have students testing for algebra. We don't have students testing for geometry. Other school districts do. So those are our students that you would say are typically on that pretty accelerated path of mathematics. They don't show up in the numbers. We made a conscious choice to not have students sit to take a test to get a score. If I'm on 17 or I'm 21, it's not the number I'm looking at. The reality is that our students, with the graduation rate that the team looked at, 99% of kids graduate here after 6 years. When you look at the list of opportunities where kids go off to school and go to college, hearing the children speak and listen to their experiences, listening this evening to our student body president, that was a conscious decision. I will make it again. Same with our leadership team. It's not about going after a score that, frankly, again, the data set is from 2018 and 19, nor does it reflect the philosophy of the school district. The potential here is we have double-digit increases in students accessing these programs now that they never had a chance before. We are starting to see a closing on some of our underrepresented student populations that were not accessing the information before. Now we're seeing that. So the reality is that to get a distinction such as the International Baccalaureate Program distinction for this campus, that is a putting yourself under the microscope, outside entities coming in for 2 or 3 days to examine our practices and our best experiences for kids. Same with the high school, the DP program, that's an outside evaluation. The state doesn't do this, other schools, you are putting yourself out for that part. So it's a very conscious decision. We had talked about at that time, knowing that there might be some likelihood with numbers from external by not having all kids taking external assessments. And the community may have seen that most recently, actually even on Monday, Blue River report came out for the regents and identified they're exploring ways to look at having students demonstrate their understanding in different ways and maybe not rely upon those handful of regents assessments anymore. Unfortunately, that is the metric that is used there. And so when I talked with a statistician at the company yet to be identified, you know what I'm talking about? There's a lot of queries and a lot of holes and a lot of information that that does not represent well, and that's why I think, as Claire mentioned before, many universities have dropped out from even providing that information. We don't have the opportunity to do that. We're a public school. Many schools say, look, we're just not going to provide that information anymore. So, but it was a very clear, conscious decision. We were not looking at chasing those numbers. We were looking at elevating the experience for all learners so all learners can find a better success. So.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I mean, the best answer is our philosophy doesn't align with what their philosophy of a strong educational institution looks like. Sounds like, you know, like Ray said, if we made all of our students sit for all of our Regents exams, then our numbers would go up. But we don't need to do that, and we don't believe that's the right thing for kids. And as of Monday, the New York State Regents doesn't believe that's the right thing for kids either, and are exploring more flexible pathways to graduation. And in addition, we could increase our gates to higher level courses and only allow the students who are going to achieve the best scores take those assessments. But that is not what we're trying to do for kids. We're trying to expose all students to rigorous coursework, provide supports for them to be successful, and success for one student might be a 3, and success for another student is a 5, and both of those are successes, but they may not translate into higher external scores for measuring our district.
And just one specific example, I reached out specifically to their psychometrician. I found what I believed was an error in our calculations. And the response that I received after multiple was, that is not my job to figure out your calculations. And no, even if I wanted to pay for it, they don't offer that service. I'm not sure what else to do with that.
So they had a mistake in the calculations.
What I believe
that
was an error
inaccurate,
that would not clarify.
And they won't fix it or even look at it to see if it's wrong.
I'm assuming I'm wrong, and just help me understand it, but the reality is it wasn't there. And again, I think, like as Claire said, is that the reality of that's not where we're going after you hear and listen and see the children, their experiences, in and outside the classroom, right in front of the board on a week or monthly basis, and then hearing from the kids up here, and later in the spring we get a chance to walk around and visit the school and stuff.
So what ratings can we rely on?
I would just rely
Because
upon.
we're relying on, you talk about not only the school, but you talk about the taxpayers and their values of their homes in the school districts that people want to move to.
Sure.
So what are they going to go by? What
as
ratings
being-
do they go by? I mean, we have our own philosophy apparently here, but opposed to other people's philosophies, but it goes by ratings. So to the taxpayer, what ratings do they go by?
So as being a taxpayer here for the last 14 years with 3
know.
kids,
We all are.
Can I answer the question?
Yes, we all are taxpayers. I'm just saying, what are they going to
I'm answering the question.
Okay.
So as a taxpayer and a parent who's graduated 3 kids from the school district, what I'm looking at is the skills, knowledgeable transfer skills that my children have walked out of this high school with. Are they able to apply that in their workforce right away? Are they able to go to school right away? Yes, I see that. Did they rank at one spot or another? You want rankings, we have rankings with the ACT scores. You have rankings even on the scores you're mentioning. That ranking, you were scoring at the 87.9 percentile across the country on that same ranking. So the reality is those are rankings there.
I'm speaking about parents that are moving to the district.
Sure, 87.9 percentile across the country is where the Somers High School scored last year. And in relationship to our pedagogical approach of including all learners, if that's the data set they're looking at, it's there, it's going to be there. And I would ask if they wanted a closer look to come and look at our schools, talk to our principals, and to see and talk to our children. And that's what they certainly do.
Do you feel the ratings have gone down from the inception of this program?
Which ratings you're speaking about?
Any ratings? The 17 to 21 in the
Sure, there's ratings that
county
have gone
or,
down?
in the state. So do you think that they have gone down since the inception of this program?
Which would be what program?
The IB program, the MYP program.
I think as far as the ratings, as far as the percentage of students that we have participating in the program has absolutely gone up. The reality of rating the students, if you say what percentage of those kids went down, you may find that went down, you may find some that actually went up. And so it's dependent upon what area inside of those ratings that you would be looking at, which went up or down. If you're looking at one global metric of the U.S. News World Report, which I just described before, the data set is old. It's not comparing apples to oranges. Teachers or schools are putting in 3 higher level mathematics courses that our students take, but they don't take the regents into the pool. We don't. We chose consciously not to do that. So that would be a piece I would say, if that's what you're rating the school district on, I think you're making a misstep to rate it on one element. You should be coming in and learning about our schools.
So we're basing it on a philosophy.
Can I just say one observation that I made too? One thing, I'm really waiting to see what happens when the data finally catches up to current day. Because I did do a lot of digging into some of those major ratings that are out there. And they are, I can confirm, like it says they're using data, most of the testing data is still from 2018 and 2019. So the number, and a lot of it factors too on how many students are taking AP or IB exams and how well they're doing. We've dramatically increased the number of students that are participating in those courses. And they're doing very well, particularly in the IB classes, their passing rate is really high. So it'll be interesting to see when that data finally is calculated into the ratings, does it make a difference? There's been progress that, from what I can see, still is in, areas that we've had definite progress that don't seem to be included in there. But, there's so many different factors that who knows. But I think the great thing to point people to, I think part of why we created this Forward in Excellence report that's online is point people to the website, and they can see data on how our students are doing. And particularly high school, which is like that culmination of the whole.
Data that we're supplying, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's, but some of it's state test scores and it's the STAR test scores. So that's not, it's like the numbers of what kids took.
But we're supplying the data, but these assessments are external assessments. They're not locally created assessments. They're the same assessments that all New York State students are taking in high school unless they're exempt from the examinations. The AP tests are the same AP tests that students across the nation are taking, and so the same with the IB. So it's not just us saying, hey, our students are doing well. We have clear, concrete data from external assessors saying your students are doing well.
Good.
Yeah. And if you look at where the state test scores are, you can actually compare in there how scores, the average of scores in the region performed and where Somers is. So you can see if we're better or worse there.
So it looks like over the past 6 years, that's from the time we've offered the IB program, correct? 6 years so far?
That would be the diploma program at the high school. Would be
Right.
6 years.
So we've had roughly 34 graduates, right? So it's a little bit less than 6 per year.
Yeah, so fascinating. Earlier we spoke about there's 11 courses that those individuals, children would have to take.
Right.
On an AP perspective, we have 0 students who've actually performed at that level. So to me, that's an amazing credit to our teachers and to our leadership that if you went 11 AP or 11 IB, we have 0 AP, but we have actually that many students that did that full piece. That's pretty phenomenal.
That's great. So do you think the implementation of the MYP and the PYP program is going to steer these students towards an IB diploma?
The target is not what is there, so I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that question because that's not the intent.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
It's not the intent.
Do you think it would steer them, though? I mean, it's kind of the same philosophy, correct, that a whole bunches together leads up to one another?
No, it's not correct.
It does. Oh.
Yeah. And as you were at the training before, you spoke about where the PYP, the MYP, and the K-6 through 12 does not lead specifically to a diploma program candidate. Quite frankly, our English teacher, I think, was 25 years, teaches, has taught AP and IB. It's an approach to have students be able to, as she described, apply soft skills so that students can take the knowledge that they need from the New York State curriculum and apply that out in the field.
Would it be within the same philosophy?
It's a framework, the instructional practices.
Would it be within
those
all these
instructional
programs
practices
together? Would be all the same type of framework?
It is a continual framework for instructional practices, the teaching,
Right.
and for
That's
student
what I'm
learning.
getting at.
Yes.
It's the same framework.
That's based in
for each.
research on what is the best way to teach students so that
Right.
they engage actively, retain their learning, and develop the skills that they can transfer into real life.
And the public can get that research, correct?
Absolutely.
If we
I
can
mean,
get that.
anyone can get that
No.
research.
It's linked through the Forwarded Excellence report that goes
Right.
into our website.
Okay, yeah, just so they know where they can.
Certainly, it certainly is well on the air. And the reality, they have data set from, last 50 years, frankly, from the project initially started to most recently, and City of Chicago has made a determination as a city-wide to adopt the International Baccalaureate program. Obviously, much more diverse perspective, a larger school district than us, but at a large scale like that, it's a pretty amazing step, I would say, that they made.
Now, you said they're coming in to do the evaluation that we're going to be on. So the IB, whatever, from Switzerland or wherever.
So they wouldn't necessarily come from Switzerland. There are international groups, and so most often they're from North America. And so we most recently just had the most recent visit was at this campus, and they came and spent a couple of days here talking to students, talking to parents, talking to some board members at the time, and looking at the program, what they had identified to then accredit us in that work. And again, the accreditation that takes place, there's multiple steps, but certainly the procedures and practices regarding inclusive practices is a piece. We have to have a document, practice in there, as well as show evidence of that. So it's an inspection, I guess I would say, and that's not something that, again, as far as looking at a indicator, you don't have other school districts unless you have an IB. You don't have a school district does not have, the state does not come in and inspect us. They don't. You don't have other entities that come and inspect us. The International Baccalaureate program does. They come and inspect us, and it's in a 5-year cycle. And they are looking and talking and speaking to all individuals involved, with parents, with the board, with administration, with kids, with teachers, to see. And there was actually, we did a 5-year revisit at the high school, and there was a room probably of 45 individuals at the high school for a good portion of a day going through that project. I commend the leadership team and the teachers to putting out, here's everything we are doing in our schools. Please come and help us get better at it and kind of assess how we're doing. Again, best instructional practices, from McTighe's work to anybody's work, from Rick DeFore's work, all those authors, you would say that's a great educational piece. It's grounded and embedded into everything about the International Baccalaureate program.
Okay, so there was some concerns. If you go onto the IB website, there's a lot of political activism injected into the lessons. It's actually listed as certain requirements for a lot of these things. IB program requires schools to teach what's contained in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the content of treaties and accords as Kyoto, the UN Treaty of Rights of a Child, the Earth Charter, Agenda 21, Biodiversity Treaty, or many others which are considered socialistic, and the United States does not support them. So this is this is in the IB program that is part of the requirements that are going to be.
What are you reading from? I'm
I have
sorry.
notes, and then I have the IB website where it's how can we work towards more equal distribution of wealth. There's other bullet points on the PYP program of developing culturally aware children aged 3 to 12. I think at that age we'd probably want to focus on reading and math. Other items mentioned, I don't know if we sent anybody.
Can I ask that you just share that information with us?
Yeah, I'll put all my notes
what
together.
you found, because
I'm just
you're
looking
making
at-
claims and you're
I'm looking
making
at the
representations
this is just the
of
IB
some
website.
things. Yeah, I'm not going to read through the IB website.
I
while we're
just read
sitting
through
here.
the IB website.
You read
Like you were
some
adding
other
some- you were adding your
analysis, somebody's
opinions.
No, and then
analysis
I've read
of an
other
IB
stuff, and
website.
I'm just looking at
I'm
the
just
IB
asking
website
you,
right now.
If you have some concerns about something,
Yeah, I'm asking them right now. I'm looking at the IB website.
You're looking at it.
Doesn't really
We're
tie
not
into
looking
what
at
our
it,
And
report is. That's
and
sort of
we're not able to
IB
prepare and
presentation.
understand
Yeah,
what
so
your question is.
no one's looked at the IB website over.
We've looked at it many times, and
I said there
the
was
IB website is
the-
not telling us what to teach to our kids.
Yeah, there's
No, it's not.
certain requirements in there.
It's giving us a framework for how to teach.
Yes, it's a framework
and for kids how to think critically. It is not telling us we need to teach our kids that they need to think this way or they need to think that way. No.
The reason you didn't bring this up at the training session we had an hour
We had
ago?
Trying to bring it up, but we were rushed along.
Yeah.
Well, I think.
And this is I was asked.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
I think this detailed part of a debate argument at this point may be premature. I have, read a lot, heard a lot. I think we do have a lot of information, data presented to us. I'm very glad to see that we have this process presenting the excellence report since a year or so. We can have year after year sort of accumulated information. So at this point, I think it's important from the learning office point of view, is whether we could really identify some key factors in this data, whatever, enrollment, whatever you think it's the parameters, teaching philosophy, student interaction, whatever, to identify some key factors that can be correlated with some progress. Unfortunately, of course, the progress part, some are making small progress, some are sort of on a flat level. That kind of thing does not sort of give you a strong confidence to say one way or the other. I think for IB program, if they come to us to evaluate us, now seems to me it's our time to really provide them information to work together to really articulate what are the key factors really make this program very different, successful in many ways. When you teach individuals, or you teach a class, a group, or a whole grade, there are different levels of evaluation assessment. It's very difficult, I understand that. But I think we as a school, and we have a learning office, should take the mission saying, now, how do we really identify what are the key factors we should look at it year after year to prove whether we're on the right track, whether the track is making enough progress, or not. Okay, this is my feeling. I think we're on the track, but I think I want to at least present my view to guide you people to think maybe all faculty should think the same way. What is the main key factors I should look for and see whether I can make a point that we are on the right track? Okay, make it sense to you?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So I still don't want to stop quite yet. my anecdote, and this is my own anecdotal experience, went through the great experience at SIS, and we had this day, we got around during active learning in the classes, and I just have to say, I saw such great engagement from the students with each other, with the material, with the teachers. I couldn't believe the energy I was seeing from the students. Not sitting there being talked to. They were engaged and involved in what they were learning, and I was blown away. I thought it was fantastic. And I don't know where exactly that came from, but I know there's a lot that goes into that, and that is not automatic, and that is not natural. It was fantastic. I know.
I agree.
Just because
that was a good day.
It was. It was great, wasn't it? Yeah. I know just because of the age of my own kids. I've been around the college experience. I know from touring colleges, their admissions departments, they value the AP curriculum, and they highly value the IB curriculum. I don't have numbers to look at on how many applicants they get who are actual IB diploma, actually have their IB diploma, but we've seen the statistics and their acceptance rate if you have an IB diploma in so many top colleges is by far eclipses their normal acceptance rate. There's no question there's something about it that is recognized as being very valuable and very rigorous. And I have my anecdotal information, but there's a heck of a lot of data. There are a ton of studies out there. No, I haven't read all of them. I have gone onto the IB site. I have looked at them. It's impressive, and everything I've seen and experienced with it has really stressed that they're not telling. This is not something that I'm getting a sense that from your comments that there's a fear that kids are being indoctrinated with some ideology, and that's not.
Nick had asked
I've not seen that anywhere.
Nick had asked us to go speak to people about the IB program, what they think about it, and I took notes and request from the public that.
Yeah, but you came with some representations of what the IB diploma
I'm asking questions.
Is here.
Are there certain things that are required to be put into the curriculum? That's the questions that was.
Then ask that question. Don't you came with comments saying that X, Y, Z were required to be in the curriculum
that go against
and I was asking where you got that from. And
it was actually from the UN. The UN works with IB. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah, and that's probably
the community
that's probably the UN's version of how they're teaching it.
They've been doing it.
That may not be the IB program. That may be individual
it's a
case.
set program that gets evaluated by a store. You asked us to. People of this community asked this question. Nobody else did the homework? I guess not. There's people that.
Well, part of the homework assignment was to give the questions over ahead of time so that we could prepare and have a robust conversation instead of springing us at the last minute with we don't know what you looked at.
I don't know. It could be that information and what you quoted is how the UN and teaches within their own. Within their own school at the UN, they have their own international school at the UN, and then they might use the IB framework, and maybe they require their teachers to teach certain things. It's completely different than what Summer Central School District.
And I pulled stuff just off their conferences and.
So Dom, can you share those questions with Ray on that? Right. So
I'll pull. I just jotted down some notes. I had comments from people. People had sent me emails throughout the month. Based on requests.
But again.
So I'm sorry, I'm the one who interacts with the community. I guess that's
if there are questions, that's we're all open here.
We all enjoy
Get them
the
to us. We should all be seeing those, not just you, and then bring it up, and we find out what the heck's being asked, because I don't.
Look, we all know that there's clarity and people want to understand the IB piece of it. And Ray, I think you're about to queue up, right? You're going on a.
Actually, last night you were at the.
Listen, we're spending a lot of money on things, and our people of the community are concerned about it.
So we had the meeting last night, PTI, sure. Actually had communications afterwards. With
Enough people were concerned about it that I'm sitting here.
So I guess what I'm saying is that did start that, and I'll just shift into the next piece if that's okay, ladies. I'm just going to shift to the next piece. So the next part of the agenda is just the SCSD kind of 2030 plan.
Yep.
So we have gone back, myself and all the administrators, and visited with each one of the schools proper, talked to all the teachers and the faculty and those pieces, and as we went last fall, and here's where we were and what we're looking for there, we went back and shared that. And then went ahead and met with our, actually with our student body president there earlier with Sebastian, met with the kids that he was with, about 50 kids at the high school, went through that process. We started doing some of the PTAs, as we did last night with the Primrose PTA, and talked to the community that was there, and we have a few more classrooms to go through to complete kind of those cycles of coming back in the sharing tour of where we're at with the plan. And so we have been sharing that out.
And part of that, as I'm reading through it in here, right, is talking about the IB piece of it, right, and talking about the framework and what it is,
Yes.
right? All right, and then to what Dom is doing, right, is actually just bringing up some concerns, whether it's, call it FAQs or questions that the community has. What we ask is just take that back in consideration, so as you go through the next ones, make sure that
Anything
you're
it provided me,
addressing that
absolutely,
and
sure.
provide clarity, right, because this is not Dom independently asking these questions, right? So we do need to just make sure that, there is clarity and we're addressing those to the public, whether their concerns valid or not. But let's just try to get that as part of our communication.
And honestly, one of the communication elements of the plan this year, we have tomorrow night, actually, in this campus is hosting an informational night for the middle years program with our International Baccalaureate coordinators. And so they have that slated and ready to go. And so they're ready to do that. And if there's need, we'll do that again. And so that part of helping people understand what it is and frankly what it isn't. There's a lot of misunderstandings and mistruths out there that it's not. You're picking up a website, you're reading something, you need to talk to our teachers directly. You don't need to talk to me, you don't need to talk to administrators. Actually, those people will be there and saying, here's what it is, here's what's in it. If you're looking for anything, Dom, on that, point to a map, point to an experience that any of our kids are having in there. You're not going to see it. Again, you're gonna see what we spoke earlier about tonight, the best instructional practices about teaching students the best ability to learn, and teachers on how to best help get those learned. So, but we'll be wrapping those ones up. We got a couple of Zoom we've done, we got a couple after that, so we'll kind of get those things wrapped up.
Got it. So are you gonna, we showing the slide?
Oh yeah, I can just, the one I just
had one more quick question.
Yeah, fire away.
6 years of inception, what has been the cost thus far? And what do you project the cost being moving forward?
As far as the cost goes,
As far as the program and MYP, PYP, and the whole in general.
Yeah, so you have to help me when you mean the program. It's really a framework.
Well, I know teachers have to go to conferences. They have to kind of relearn how to move forward with the philosophy of this teaching. They have to be trained. So what would be the projected cost to get all this done? And what have we spent so far on, say, conferences you guys go to and whoever has been to training thus far?
Yeah, so my initial estimates would be anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000 estimate a year out of a $100 million budget. So you're talking less than 1% of 1%.
That includes all the training for everybody?
Again, you're asking me this question now. I'm giving you my best ballpark estimate on an annual basis what that's going to be on the training components there. We have sometimes trainers will come to us, so that's a little bit more, and we'll have folks go out of the training. Certainly as that would go hopefully to the primary year program, there'll be some components that we would need to then grab our elementary people. The reality is, though, we're not going from a ground zero to training. The reality is we had support of teachers about looking at best instructional practices like assessment, best assessment practices that you can go. We have had teachers go to that since day one. Teachers now are going from that to looking, how can I use assessment in the International Baccalaureate framework? So the reality is it's a different experience as far as aligning it to the learner profile that we see above me here and looking at how you can do that. So it's not just an add, it's a replacement, frankly, an updating and an improvement of some of our big experiences. So certainly that's something that we can do, but that would be my initial estimate. Depending upon the year, the higher number in those particular years, then you're looking at like that, the 5-year visit. that's going to take you some more because you have a group that's coming in that year and they're evaluating your system. So you're helping pay for that somewhat.
So we can get a number on the past 6 years.
Certainly,
right?
Yeah.
That what we've spent
for the
thus
training
far
support for the teachers. Yeah,
You probably want to compare that with what we spend to train teachers for other things too.
Well, I want to compare it just to this, just to what I'm asking for.
Right, but when you just hear that number, you don't know what it costs.
But that's what I want to know.
Okay.
So that sounds like I'll put something in there because it sounds like you have another question in there. So
Yeah,
I can pull that together.
I was just saying it helps put in perspective when you understand what teacher training in general costs for all the other things that we all have in the school district. So you know where it relates.
Yeah, honestly, with teacher training and teacher support, professional learning for our teachers and frankly our teaching assistants in that group, you know, you would look at recommendations from any organization that you couldn't put enough, frankly, into that. So I will certainly pull those numbers together and look at that. But that would be my estimated annual piece, and then we can pull that up and stuff. So it's at middle school library. So I'll see. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. I should at least be able to have a ballpark of that coming forward. So, oops, sorry, Nick. Oh, there it goes. Finally. Yep. So this is just a piece that I was speaking through Nick here. That the plan for excellence, kind of the sharing tour that we've gone through. Again, the foundational skills that have been discussed and worked through in the district were roughly the last decade when we started the International Baccalaureate program here at the high school. Again, ensuring that all students meet or exceed success, nurturing inclusive learning environments, and they have this recognized framework that goes to actually pre-K through 12th grade. Our pre-K program is not run by the district proper. It's actually outsourced. We put it at K through 12. Again, aligns with New York State standards, which is the content of what is in there, and this is kind of how you want to deliver that content. The content does not come from the International Baccalaureate program. They do not provide this material for you or that or those things like that. It's about New York State standards, K through 12, all subjects, and saying, okay, how do you want to deliver it? That is through the best instructional practices of the International Baccalaureate program for students teaching and learning. And then those 4 elements there just spoke a little bit about school visits are now complete, looking at completing the PTA roundtable. I think I have one after the winter break. It just had to get rescheduled, so that's why it's pushed out a little bit. Student leaders, we've completed those in November, and then we had conversations in October and November about the SCSD plan. So, and we'll certainly anticipate bringing this up forward because it's the ongoing conversation.
Great. And you have the list of those PTA events coming up, right?
Yeah, I put out for the rest of the year that's on our schedule.
All right.
So.
And this is a place where community members, if they have questions.
Yeah, we had a lovely conversation tonight, and so probably about 45 minutes or so. It was great, and we'll go to SEPTA as well too a little bit later.
Got it. How many people showed up to the one last?
18, I believe.
18.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you to the Primrose leadership team and the PTA. Again, the PTA is our kind of network to go through that. Oh, I apologize. Also, we shared last night that as we explore look at the primary years program, as we did for the mini years program and the high school program, there was a feasibility study that took place where teachers, administrators, and parents actually went and visited other schools to see how that would fit and shape to the school district. And then the presentation, yes, the same course will take place here. Actually, Liz will lead at the K through 5 level of bringing together a K through 5 team, some PTA members, some teachers, have a couple of board members on those the visits, along with some of the administrators to go see, look, feel, and live it and experience as we learn about it. So the team will come together, learn a little about it for a few weeks, build their background knowledge, and then go see it in practice. And that's what we did on the other pieces, and we'll just kind of repeat that part in here, same as the primary years program. So. Okay. Thanks.
All right. You done with that?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, next we're on to committees and liaison reports. I know we had
We had planning.
Planning, okay.
We basically met. I was a committee of 1 for the night, but I did send a summary to Ife and Pat to catch them up. We basically started planning for our December 5th retreat. So that's ongoing. And we also went over the sharing tour for the 2030 Plan for Excellence. We went over our charter. Everything's good. I haven't heard any other feedback from either Pat or Ife, so I'm assuming everything's okay.
All right. And that has the calendar for the rest of the year as far as the
Correct.
schedule and what we're looking to talk about. We trying to put that up on the website?
For all the board meetings,
I think your board meetings are all up on the website.
they're all on the,
Yeah,
you're talking about topics.
just topics,
You're talking
really,
about
yeah,
topics. Do we
yeah.
usually put that up? I mean, we could talk
Do we have a
about
way
it.
that could we think about or look into ways that
Yeah.
we could share that broadly, just so people know what the,
we
some
need
of the
to-
cadences
What
the topic
and
is
conferences
at.
are?
We need to,
Yeah, so this is
have
going to
a-
be where the budget or whatever it might be, but this is the typical topics, there's a schedule of events on this.
Yeah,
that's right.
subject to change.
Subject
as
to
always.
change.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Dom, you have any updates on the communication? I know you just gave
No,
a
that
brief
was-
one
no, we haven't.
on that there. And then policy is going to talk in a little bit, but anybody else? Nope. All right. We're going to go into financial reports.
So Chris has got a conflict this evening, so we basically just have one component on the agenda this evening, so.
I think we just have to accept.
That's in the
this.
business
And that's
consent.
it.
This is
Yep.
just the,
Yeah.
Okay, so we just have to acknowledge that we
Yep.
see it, right? That's
Have to
it.
accept it.
All right, now approval of the meeting minutes. Let it be resolved, the Board of Education, having received copies of the minutes of the meetings of 10/24, hereby approves the same.
so moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, personnel consent agenda. Let it be resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby approves the attached personnel consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained? Objections? CSE, CPSE meeting recommendations. Let it be resolved that the Board of Education have received copies of the recommendations of the meetings as listed on the attached memo, hereby approves the same.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstained? Objections? No. Business consent agenda. Let it be resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, hereby approves the attached business agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions on this? No?
This is just the transportation.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained? Opposed? All right, memorandum of agreement. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the Superintendent of School, hereby approves the attached memorandum of agreement between Somers Central School District and Somers related professionals. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Policies. This is policy second reading and adoption. Let it be resolved that upon recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education of Somers Central School District does hereby accept the following policies for second reading and adoption. Board organizational meeting, homebound instruction, school safety and education climate reporting, and conditional appointment.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or anything, comments? No? All right.
Yeah, no, policy committee hasn't met again, so.
All right.
Same.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained? Objections? Okay. And now we move on to public comment. All right, all speakers will properly identify themselves, maximum 30-minute period, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers may comment on matters of public interest involving school operations and programs, but not criticize or personally attack any individual connected with the school district. No district employees or students may be commented upon or identified by name, situation. Questions asked by the public will be referred to the appropriate staff member for reply later at a later time. Questions requiring investigations will be referred to the superintendent for consideration and later response.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Teresa Chang, and I've been a Somers resident for the past 33 years. I'm here today on a lighter note. I'm actually the USA Pickleball Ambassador for the town of Somers. So I know that the school, the high school, is planning to do new tennis courts. I'm not sure how many, but I would like to request that there'll be pickleball drawn on on the tennis courts. Couple of reasons. The high school kids can actually use the tennis court as a pickleball court. You can draw 2 pickleball courts on 1 tennis court. So if you're building 3, you'll have 6, and if you're building 6, you'll have 12 pickleball courts. They can use it during the gym time. They can use it after school. I think it's a great addition to extracurricular for the kids to do. Pickleball is a very fun sport. It is the fastest growing sport if you have not heard about it. I started the program in 2021 after COVID. I introduced it to the community, and I actually started the Parks and Recs pickleball program, and we played on the Lego courts. We call it the Lego courts. It's actually the tennis courts, but it's a plastic court, and it's really not the most ideal surface. We are in the process. We've spoke to Parks and Recs to help us build a dedicated pickleball court. So now that the high school is going to be building their own tennis courts, we definitely would love for you to consider to put the pickleball lines on it. We also would request that the local residents be allowed to use them when school is not in session, on weekends, on public holidays, and especially during the summertime. I think it's a great way for the community to come together. It's very much an intergeneration sport where you can have a child, 10-year-old, 16-year-old, play with the adult parent and also a grandparent. And you can actually all play pretty well together. You'd be quite amazed at it. And I've also taught parent-child clinics, and I have seen so much fun that they have. So I want the school board to consider that, to allow the resident to use it while the school is not in session, and that's something that I think will benefit the town a lot. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm here tonight to ask for some clarification.
Name, please.
Tina Palushai. Some clarification on an 11th grade IB English lesson, or at least it was a video. A YouTube video that was presented to the class called The Mask I Live In. I watched the video and was wondering how that has anything to do with the curriculum. I went onto the school website and looked at the curriculum maps, and I would like some clarification on how that video fit in to that curriculum, the materials that were used to teach regarding that video, and what the intended outcome was. So if you can get back to me, that would be great. Thank you.
Cannot hear her. What did she say?
She had a question about a lesson. Huh? She had a question about a lesson in one of the classes.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Mitch Schilkraut. I've been a resident of almost 24 years. I have 2 grandchildren in the school district at the present time. And I would just like to reiterate what we talked about with the pickleball courts. It is the fastest growing sport in America. I happen to live in Heritage Hills. We presently have 333 people on our pickleball list for 4 courts. It would be great if we had another place in Somers to play. As Teresa said, the kids can use it during the school, can be used on weekends, holidays, for the residents of Somers. Every town around us, Yorktown, Bedford, Mount Kisco, all the towns have built pickleball courts for the town use. And Somers is probably the only town I can think of in the area that doesn't have dedicated pickleball courts at the present time. Even Heritage Hills put 4 pickleball courts in. So it would be a great investment for the town, very little cost to paint the lines on the existing courts. Thank you.
Hi, Sherry Ehrlich, also for the pickleball. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, no one ever said I was quiet. Also for the pickleball, but I wanted to equate it to the other usage of our schools currently. So if we want to go running, we can use the track when there's obviously no activities going on it, or if they want to use the turf or the fields to throw a ball or just to have activities for the town, it's another place to use it. So I wanted to just ensure that the new tennis courts, which we passed with a lot of money to support the school, with all the taxpayer dollars, I want to make sure that that is also viewed with the same eye as we do the track and the fields and everything else that is for the community to use when our students aren't using it. So, thank you. I don't know the process here, so I'm just going to.
Nope. Good, thank you. Anybody else? All right. Now we go to board member comments.
Yeah, if we can come up with a number, Dr. Blanche, what is the number of teachers who are trained each year? You have a number for, I mean, obviously you don't have to tell me now, but I would like to know a number of the teachers who are trained per year and how much does that cost per teacher, per training?
So I want to make sure I understand it clearly. I know we had 3 teachers trained earlier this week, as Liz spoke about Oregon Gillingham training reading. Mm-hmm. Are we looking at that as well? Oregon
Everything,
Gillingham?
just in general.
Gotcha.
What
training support? Got it.
Right.
Yep. Sounds good.
And what types of professional development has been offered during the year? How much does that cost?
So the professional development or learning, training, I would put that in analogous to that, so I think those would be one and the same.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. I got the honor to attend the Veterans Day Parade this weekend. One of the points that they brought up, and one of the speakers brought up, was, and we bring it here with mental health. We've lost, since the start of the Afghan war, we've lost over 130,000 service members to suicide, so 22 a day. And I know the big focus is with the school on mental health, and there's also adults, and look into, do your buddy checks. And again, be aware of, look out for people, because this has been a big issue lately, and it's something that has affected me personally.
No, I said some of it earlier. The visit we had was terrific. I think I might have even shared that at the last
Yeah,
meeting.
I can't remember. I think we had a meeting between.
It was worth saying it again. It
was, right? It was.
Mm-hmm.
I love those the tours, and I really appreciate it. And I know there's a lot of work, and it takes time out of the professionals in school. But we appreciate it when you're able to put it together, and it's really valuable. So.
Yeah. You say anything?
Okay. I have 3 comments. First, I've been away for a month, and I call it a fact-finding trip, which was very interesting. I have a lot of things that I learned, and also I really appreciated the fact that our school board runs without me smoothly. That's what different systems about. And I do want to make 2 points. One relates to education, one is on the pickleball. The relation to the education is the program we heard today, and I'm personally certainly in favor of making progress on education using new program, educate our kids. But in education, fundamentally, we're talking about the learning. And there's a philosophy of learning, there's a habit of learning, there's skills and methods of learning. What the IB program brings to us and claims to have is the difference of philosophy, habits, and methods and skills. I think the problem is, I think themselves have, I've seen some of the presentation by IB themselves, is lack of a very concrete, factors. I'm a scientist. I study things. I want to find correlation, causality. You find variables that really relates to results, that in a significant way you have correlation. And that's what we need to find. And I'm glad that Somers entered the program and with some, preparation try to produce results. And now we start presenting results, okay? Although it's still early and the data is not conclusive, but I think I'm a hopeful person that we're heading in the right direction. That's why I asked the question and how the learning office will focus on finding those key factors that correlates with this causality principle. What really makes a educational program successful? I want to mention my own experience when I was in high school. We have classes that are organized per class, each class 50 kids. And we have 10 classes, 500 classes in the year. And one class has a teacher that's dedicated as just a home teacher, called a home teacher. And one home teacher has the guts to say, we want to make our study in a different way. Of course, have to go through principal approval. And the principal was very, proactive and agreed. What he suggested, in my now hindsight, is very much like IB program. He basically believes in the philosophy of learning, encourage people learning in a very, in those days, very free style, okay? In those days, you get taught a curriculum in a very strict way. The teacher just, shove it to you. But he wants to do it differently. Second, he introduced an idea, is this mentor program. High school kids always want to get to college. College entrance is a measurement for success. And he wants to show if we have this mentor learning program, means the advanced kids can learn and work with less advanced kids together as group, as team, the whole class will improve more than what normally people will focus on. The very advanced is, okay, let's get a few more people into college to show we are successful. So that's a different philosophy, okay? And thirdly, this methodology he sort of introduced really is almost like our Boy Scout philosophy. Make the whole class feel like we are just friends. We are scouts together. We have a common goal. You know what? And that class was successful. And the entrance exam in these old days, the college exam determines your life. If you either get in or you don't get in, okay? And if you get in good school, you get a much better life sort of ahead of you. And that success, only one incident, I don't even know whether the school ever followed up, but I benefit from it. And I feel I want to make this example known to you and the learning office. We need to do something like that. If we want to say Somers is different, Somers can be better, we have to do that with that kind of spirit. Okay, all right, that's enough about that. About pickleball, if I don't say anything, I probably won't be able to sleep tonight. I think the presentation was sensible. It's making a lot of sense. Taxpayers ought to have some rights to use public facilities, and school certainly is public school facility. But school has priority, and we always, value the kids as number one. So I'm sure our superintendent, our administration would have methods to manage and handle this just like any other sports. And I agree, the pickleball is a rising sport, and they didn't say that. I always tell them, pickleball is one family sport, much more family-oriented than any other sport I know about. You take about basketball, you got soccer, you got football, anything else. Pickleball is far more family-oriented. I can see that because I see people, 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and kids, they can play on the same court. They play same game. And that is something I want to encourage. So I want to leave my support vote as the board member to the superintendent to handle this to help our Somers to be different. Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank you for giving us the opportunity before the meeting earlier to the learning experience about IB. I've done a lot, attended a lot of different parent information things and had kids in the program, so I've learned a lot about it, but I still came away from it with a better understanding of what International Baccalaureate is, how it started, what the values of it are, and it was interesting to have it presented sort of as a classroom experience almost as is to students. So I thank you for that responsiveness to providing opportunities to help meet the needs of some of the questions that we've had. And thank you for the report tonight. I think this whole Forward Excellence report is a great, a useful resource for us to have that's accessible for anybody on the website to be able to look at and dig into the data. And maybe if there's things on that aren't included that community members are looking to see, we can always, it's a living document, so we can always add it and update it too. So that's good feedback. So thank you.
Thanks.
I was just going to say that, I've attended a few events this past week. I was able to attend the Veterans Day Parade as well. It was a very special event. I attended the SAS birthday party, which is also another great community event.
It was freezing.
What?
It was freezing.
It was cold. It was definitely a long 4 hours, but yeah, I definitely had a few layers on. And but it was a great community event in any event. And I also had the benefit of attending the SAS PTA meeting the other night, where Linda Belger was able to present the Forward and Excellence. The Somers Success Plan, 2030 Success Plan, in your stead. And I think it received a lot of positive. Like nobody had any negative things to say, which was always a benefit, I think. So we're always looking to continuously gain feedback from that, obviously, and I look forward to hearing the rest of your tour. And I just want to, thank everybody tonight, because I know a lot of work was put into the training session that we had beforehand. And, I don't know if everyone, not everyone at this table had the benefit of getting Jenna Scatino's email last year when the middle years program was approved at this school. But it was one of the fastest authorizations that was ever given because of the amazing amount of work that these teachers put into it. And, all the positive feedback that came out from the people who came and examined our schools was just, your school is a place that honors all learners and students. Every student has access to the curriculum and included as much as possible. The learner profile is a natural part of your school culture and contributes to life learning. The students we met with feel happy to be here, valued, notice a difference in their learning, and were able to articulate the MYP framework. Your school has gone above and beyond what is required to be in place for a verification visit. Every class we observed, the students were engaged in learning and offered opportunities for inquiry. The interdisciplinary units submitted are engaging, exhibit transfer of knowledge, and will be used as a model by IB. Your school is very well funded and has clear support of the governing body. Dr. Blanche, you are a hands-on superintendent and the glue that holds this work together. And I think these are all important things. And if you have more questions about the MYP framework, tomorrow night there's going to be a presentation in this very room for 6 to 7:30. And I think it'll be a valuable place to have a conversation because there is a lot of misunderstanding, I think, out there on the IB framework, MYP framework. And it kind of dovetails nicely with the regents met this week, earlier on Monday. We got a report into our board email earlier this week, but I also saw it shared from the New York State PTA, and they are looking at a portrait of a graduate from New York State that are ready for college, careers, and civic engagement. This was from a slide that they had shared at the Regents meeting, and they're looking for students to be critical thinkers, innovative problem solvers, literate across content areas, cultural competence, social emotional competence, effective communicator, and global citizen. And it just seems to be all the things that we're striving for here in our mission with everything that we're doing. So I just want to thank you guys for that as well.
Thanks, man.
All right. Yep, same thing. I mean, thank you very much for the Forward and Excellence report. It was good seeing some of that data and the movement in that, and also hear about what the incremental improvements that you guys are doing in changing those things there. Also noticing some of that stuff significantly going up. The math score was one that was noticeable. That was a big increase on for the state test, I think it was, in 8th grade. But again, it's the continuous improvement, right, that you guys are looking to do and talking about doing, especially with the consultants coming in. And I'm interested to hear more and more, as the year goes on, what some of those improvements are, that they're those micro changes or whatever that they're doing throughout the year, and how it's working and all that, specific around the younger years reading and math, because I know that's a big focus for everybody. As far as the IB piece of it, look, I mean, I think we've talked about this, before, Ray, and in other board meetings, right? There's obviously a communication, gap as far, or understanding of it, right? I had that before I joined the board, and over the last, 2 years, I did get a better understanding of it. I also get an understanding my, kids are now taking the class, and talking to kids that are taking the classes, have graduated from it, also talking to some college recruiters or admissions officers and things like that. I haven't heard anything bad at that point as far as anybody taking the IB classes. But we do need to get the community understanding that, right, and understand what those questions are, their concerns are, whether, founded or not founded or whatever it might be, but, we need to make sure that we're explaining to them, what's going on and making that apparent. But I think that's something you guys are doing right now. You're doing a little bit of that tour. I did like the training we did here. I think some of that has to be brought up in the public and share that out a little bit more broadly. I think that's more of a, again, good stuff to share, especially on those numbers and what you're seeing. And again, we remind people the reason why we do talk about the PTA, and we have the communication committee going to it, right? And Ray and team are going to the PTA to talk about it. Because we want the community to go and ask some of these questions and have more of that conversation with the administration, in person. 15 people is better than my 3 that I got at coffee with Mark Baer. But again, I'd love to see more of the community there that has some of these questions and ask it there. That's all I have.
All right, and then I'll just close it out. So just continuing that piece, like I said before, we have a few more of those visits, and then any point in time, the buildings also, with the PTA partnership, host a monthly meeting. And so as the process goes through, it's not like this is the last time. It's like at any point in time, any administrators in any of our buildings can address any questions at that moment in time, and if there's anything that follows up, they can bring it back. So that is an ongoing open channel that I would say that, frankly, we always rely upon, is working with our PTA and our SEPTA organization and working with that. So whilst I'm going around doing this initial, hey, visit, it always will continue to come up, and that's the vehicle to bring that forth. The other piece I had, just on the pickleball piece, I didn't realize, but one of our physical education instructors who retired a few years ago, she let me know, Ray, she's like, Ray, I brought pickle in over 25 years ago to the school district. Our kids have been playing pickleball forever. And so our kids have a pickleball unit at the high school, and they go through and they play pickleball. Every year they use the courts inside in the basketball courts and use the lines on the best they can. So our kids are playing pickleball, so they're getting a pretty good experience with that. And as we go through the project also, we with our facilities improvements here, we had a group of some folks from the town that would be on our group, as well as some folks that represented different of the the tennis that we're looking at, as well as the softball and baseball and general athletic program, who were on that kind of committee. And working with the town, they helped me understand that one thing, they believe they've already changed 4 of their courts over at Reese Park to double line them. Now they have 8 pickleball courts, I believe, at the Reese Park. They have lights, which we don't have lights, nor are we expecting getting lights on our tennis court. And so as they see, we will no longer use those facilities in the fall nor in the spring at Reese Park, which we've been doing, I think it's almost 5 decades now, we've been using the help of the town. That should free up all of that space that is fully available as well. And my understanding is the town is looking at like an overhaul, I guess I'll call it, my words, of Reese Park. I do believe that there's a desire to even enhance the pickleball options there more. So there certainly does exist something today. There should be more of that later as we vacate the use of that in the fall and the spring. And so, and we do use pickleball right now. And as we go through the usage of this facility, like anything else, we have a facility uses process. And so if you have Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts in the schools, or our CISO group love the team there, always constantly using the schools and the grounds, and it just goes through a facility use process and how do you use that and those things. So But again, so hopefully it'll be a win-win, win as we vacate the use of that space at Reese Park, and then it can be turned over for pieces. We will no longer need that for that, after-school block that we commandeer with the tennis and things, so. And the last piece I had, I guess, just tonight with the Ford Excellence, I appreciate the board conversation around that and looking at that. All of the numbers and the work there, I think it is there's maybe the stats, and I think, and Chad, you spoke about earlier, about the story as seeing it in the classrooms. And we try to bring in the 3D piece this evening and continue to hear it from the children directly. That's where you kind of, okay, now tell me the story behind some of these numbers. Well, that's the story of the students and where they're going. So, and then hopefully in 2 weeks I'll be able to bring back some of the information that we had spoken about tonight. So, thank you.
Great.
I think we forgot
All right.
one thing. We forgot one thing. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Here and at home.
Next week, I don't know.
Yep.
Snuck up on us.
It's coming.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Dom, thank you for your service. All right, let it be resolved, the Board of Education goes into executive session to discuss matters related to the employment of a particular person.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?